Good afternoon. I was the speaker right before lunch, so I had the wandering bellies and minds that were ready for lunch. Now we have the tired minds after lunch. But we recognize that, but it's still important. So this afternoon, we are here for the 5 love languages, and just a reminder, this one is being live streamed. And so today we have Paula Paget and Tracy Ford, and they are from Indian Capital Technology Center in Sallisaw, Oklahoma. And they were telling me their titles, which I don't remember right now, but what I told them is I like to call them counselor-ish people, because we all have different titles. You know, some might be a student assistance counselor. I was a student advocacy coordinator, but we're all counselor-ish. You know, we're counseling. So anyway, here they are today.
Thank you. Again, I'm Paula Paget, and I'm the Academic Center Specialist at Indian Capital Technology Center on the Sallisaw campus. I have a lot of coordination and relationship with students. I do all the testing there. So I get a lot of whining that I have to counsel them through. Tracy?
Hi, I'm Tracy Ford. Am I on? Okay. I'm the Job Placement Specialist at Indian Capital Technology Center. And I actually presented the 5 love languages to some counselors, and Erica talked us into presenting here, but we thought it would be a room of like 10 to 15, maybe 20 people. So we were a little surprised when had the big group, but very glad you all are here today. We both, Paula and I, when we grow up, we want to be counselors. So we have a passion for people, and the 5 love languages you can use in every aspect of your life. So I hope you enjoy it today.
Okay, before we get started, we have a little surprise. 4 of you in this room have a piece of paper taped under your chair. If you have that, you have won a prize. Come on up. There she comes. Right there. These prizes were the different love language books. Love languages cover a multitude of things. They cover marriages, they cover education, children, teenagers, and I think the list is even goes on beyond there. So they won, each one of them have a different love language book. That's what they won.
So first today we're going to watch a video. The 5 love languages are from Gary Chapman, and that's who wrote these books. There's several books that he sells online. And after we watch, he's going to tell you about the 5 love languages, and it might seem like a marriage. It started out with the marriage, but it affects every part of our life. So we're going to take a quiz in your file folder after you watch this video. We'll take a quiz to find out what your love language is.
30+ years now of marriage and family counseling, that there's fundamentally 5 ways to express love emotionally. I call them the 5 love languages. I believe there are literally thousands of couples who are as sincere as they can be. They are loving each other, but they're not speaking the right love language. Consequently, the love tank is empty. But everyone grows up speaking a language with a dialect, and that's the one you understand best. The same is true with love. In marriage, almost never does a husband and wife have the same love language. But after we got married, I found out my wife didn't do mornings. It didn't take me long not to like her. It didn't take her long not to like me. And we succeeded in being utterly miserable. Love language number 1, words of affirmation. Using words to affirm the other person. You know, there's an ancient proverb that says life and death are in the power of the tongue. You can kill your spouse or give them life by the way you talk to them. Love is something you do for somebody else, not something you do for yourself. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. You can get a nice card for $5. Can't afford the card? Do you remember how you fold the paper, take the scissors, open up the heart, and write, I love you? Cooking a meal is an act of service. Washing dishes is an act of service. Vacuuming the floor, washing the car, mowing the lawn. Anything that you know the other person would like for you to do. Acts of service, a powerful communicator. Love says, honey, you know those apple pies you make? Would it be possible for you to make an apple pie this week? I love your apple pies. Love doesn't say, hadn't had an apple pie since a baby was born. Do you think this in-love experience has any relationship to the divorce rate in this country? I believe it is directly tied to the divorce rate. First marriages in this country, 40% end in divorce. Second marriages, 60% end in divorce. Third marriages, 75% end in divorce. The answer is not running. The answer is learning how to love the person to whom you're now married. Number 4 is quality time, by which I mean you give the other person your undivided attention. Have you ever tried this? Sitting on the couch with the TV off, looking at each other. It can be scary at first. If you feel loved by your spouse, the whole world looks bright. But if the love tank is empty and you feel like they don't love me, they wish they weren't married to me, the whole world can begin to look dark. Love language number 5 is physical touch. In marriage, I'm talking about holding hands. I'm talking about kissing. I'm talking about embracing. I'm talking about the whole sexual part of the marriage. Or if you want extra credit, when there's a crowd in the house or you're in public, you walk up and just give them a little hug and kiss on the cheek. Woo! Their love tank fills up if this is their primary love language. And the more you touch, the easier it becomes. The whole concept I'm sharing with you is that if we learn to speak the love language of our spouse and of our children, we change the emotional climate in the family. I believe thousands of marriages could be saved if we understood this concept. Any relationship, marriage, family, any relationship can be enhanced if we learn people's love language and we choose to speak it.
So now we'll give you about 10 minutes to fill out the yellow sheet
Let me tell you,
to find out what your love language is. And if you're watching live stream, you can get online, and the website is www.5lovelanguages.com, and you can do an online test.
Okay, it sounds like most of you have completed this. One of the reasons we felt like this was an important seminar to do was because of the importance of relationships, not only with your spouses or your significant others, with your boss, with your coworkers, with your students, anyone that you have a relationship with. This is going to be important for you to understand about them. How many of you learned something new about yourself? Cool. That's what we wanted to happen. Okay?
How many have taken this test before? A few of you?
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
How many think they know what their spouse is? Right. How many have the same love language as your spouse?
One.
So,
One.
So how many have different love language than your spouse?
How many of you find that difficult?
How many, I'm curious, were words of affirmation as your number one? Okay. How many quality time? Wow. How many receiving gifts? Not.
One.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. Wow.
How many acts of service? And how many physical touch?
Not as
Couple.
many.
All right.
Yeah. Well, to tell you a little bit about me, I am acts of service, and my husband is physical touch. So they don't cross paths very often. And I'll tell you a funny little story. We just moved into an older house that was my husband's family home he grew up in, and it needed to be gutted, and so we gutted it. And you can imagine an acts of service person trying to work with a physical touch person and get a job done. Doesn't happen. So we got into this, and we both work all day, so we'd go home at night, and it would just be chaos. And so one night he says, "Why don't you help me hang those blinds?" We had some new blinds to put in the windows, and I said, "Oh, okay." So I went in and tried to help him. Before it was all over, we were arguing, and I just stormed off and went outside and was stomping around, and he comes out there and he said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "I don't want to work all day and do this. I want you to do this. I want you to hire someone to do this." Well, he doesn't get it. He didn't hear my love language. And so I kind of stomped my foot and I said, "I'm not doing another thing in this house after I work all day. Done." So for 6 months, I had no blinds on my bedroom windows or my bathroom windows. And guess what? I didn't care. I didn't care. I was not hanging the blinds. If he loved me, he would go hang those blinds. 6 months later, those blinds weren't hung. And I wasn't giving him any physical touch. Good job. He wasn't getting it. So the other day, about 3 weeks ago, he says to me, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "You can't do something so simple as hang blinds?" And he looked at me kind of crazy. And so I said, "I'm going shopping. See you later." And I left and went shopping. And when I came home, guess what? The blinds were hung. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is amazing." I couldn't believe it. It actually touched me. Now, I was angry. I was still holding on to that little anger that he had not done that in 6 months. He couldn't read me. So we have a lot of work to do as far as love languages goes. He doesn't get mine and I don't get his, but we're working on it. So that's my little love language story. So maybe if I had patted him and told him how good he tried, I might have got that done in a week instead of 6 months. I don't know. I might try it next time. Trace? Okay.
So my love language, my husband and I have the same love language. The first one's physical touch and the second one's quality time. And as far as people go, quality time is going to be more of my love language than touch. I don't have to be touching people all the time. But for quality time with people, one of my biggest pet peeves is somebody on their phone while I'm trying to talk to them. So people with quality time, they want that eye contact. And it looked like most of you guys were quality time. And this chart is actually in your file folder. So that's why I wanted to put it up here so you could see. And it's just, it has each one on there and how you can communicate that love language and actions you can take and what to avoid. The next one, the next slide, is how full is your love tank? You heard Mr. Chapman on there talking about love tank being full. How I read this book for the first time, I've been married 7 years, and before we got married, my husband's best friend had just gone through a divorce, and he said the first thing that you need to do when you get married is read the love language book. So we read that book together, and in the book it says, Mr. Chapman suggests that when you find out your spouse's love language, and that you, for 3 weeks, when they come home from work or you come home from work, that you ask, how full is your love tank? And if it's not all the way full, then you ask, what can I do to fill this love tank? And you can do that, you know, with your children too. Go ahead and go to the next slide. But it's important for our love tanks to be filled. And this next one is also in your folder, attached to a chart.
This one, I think the key is, if you were born speaking Spanish and I come in and I can only speak English, you're not going to understand me and I'm not going to understand you. It's almost the same thing with the love languages. My husband speaks through physical touch and I speak through acts of service. I'm always wanting him to do something for me, and he's always wanting me to pat his back, hold his hand, kiss him on the cheek. So we don't speak the same language, and it's very difficult. And I find that when I do those things, he's so responsive, and he understands me. He gets me, and I get him when we speak each other's love language. The thing I want to interject here is Tracy has a passion for relationships with people, grown people, and children. I have a passion for students in this same aspect. If your children, your students are coming to school and they have not had their love tanks filled, their parents are, say they're acts of service, and you've got children, students in your classroom who are words of affirmation, and they have not heard words of affirmation from home, when they come to school, their love tanks are empty. It's almost like when I was doing my last year of education, the big thing was learning styles. And I'm a firm believer in learning styles and how children learn. So this, to me, went right along with everything I had been taught as an educator about how children learn. So, man, I had my giddy up and go on, and I was going to do visual and auditory and kinesthetic. And so all of that worked really well. But I still had students that I couldn't reach. And I really, truly believe, now that I know more about love languages, that their love tanks weren't full. They weren't getting what they needed at home, and I needed to figure out how to reach them. So hopefully, most of you are educators, counselors. I know you're counselors. I know how you can use this in your position in reaching some of those students that are sitting in your office every day asking for something and you can't figure out what it is. Well, their love tanks are empty. My daughter is also a counselor who was supposed to be here today and didn't get to come. And she has students, and I know you do too, day in, day out, hours on end, who come into her office and their love tanks are empty. They're begging, they're crying, they need their love tanks filled. And so hopefully you can take this, and I would suggest that you get the love language for educators and love language for teens. If you teach the little ones love language for children, they're all really, really good books and have a lot of good info in them.
The next slide is about self-love. you can use your love language. You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And these are just some things. This is in your folder also of things that you can do if you have those love languages for yourself. And it's important that a lot of times with the counselors, you give a lot at school. So you give everything you have. And to be able to come home and give love to your spouse or significant other or your children, you're going to have to take care of yourself too and do these things that go with your love language. So we'll go right into the next one. And in your folder, there is this slide is in there. There is a quiz for each, for children and for teens. So you've got a quiz in there that if you have children or if you have teens, and if you need any of these, if you want me to email you any of these copies, just give me a card when you all leave, and I can email you these. And you can also get them on that website. So right now, we just want you to think about, we're just going to play a little video, but when you think about how you can use this when you go home and for your children or for your students.
Ain't nothing better than watching you smile. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing better than watching you laugh out loud, my baby. Ain't nothing better than watching you be you. Ain't nothing better than right now. In your eyes lie the secrets I don't wanna miss. Put your hand in my hand and make a fist. Grab my shirt, curl your lip as if you know. Staring back in my eyes saying please don't go. I don't know what I know, what I know, what I know what it is that you really, really want or you need. I hate every moment away from you. I see you sleeping in my dreams. I know you're in your mother's arms. I know that you're safe from harm. You know I'm coming home real soon, and I'm bringing all my love for you. Ain't nothing better than watching you smile. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing better than watching you laugh out loud, my baby. Ain't nothing better than watching you be you. Ain't nothing better than right now. And I can't take away the pain if I don't know you're hurting again. I can't leave you on your own if I know you're crying all alone. And my heart's pumping black and blues. That's how I feel when I'm not with you. A million years pass every day, losing the time, I'm always on my way. I don't know what I know, what I know, what I know what to do. I hope you understand when I'm gone. I'll always come back home for you. Open your eyes to a brand new dawn. Ain't nothing better.
So when I was a kid, of course my love language was touch, and my parents had a different love language, and also the quality time. My stepdad was a pastor, and my mom owned a flower shop, so they were very, very busy. So I didn't really get those needs met. And when you don't get those needs met, you usually, you could be depressed or look somewhere else for those needs to be met. And that's what happened to me. So I like to encourage parents to know what their love language for their kids are and to be able to speak those love languages. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started working with someone that had a daughter that had tried to commit suicide twice. And she was at her wit's end. She didn't know what to do. She had done everything. She did everything for her daughter. And I happened to mention love languages. That came to mind. And she looked it up and started studying it. And come to find out her daughter's love language was touch. Well, that was not my friend's love language. So she had to learn how to speak that love language. And it's made all the difference in the world. It's been hard, like learning another language, but she's done it, and her daughter is doing a lot better now.
And those of you who are grandparents, I happened to use this the other day. I have 5 grandchildren, and I had 3 of them with me. And all three of them had a different love language, and they're three from the same set of parents. So the middle one has always been the one that is always seeking something, and we figured out real quick he is gifts. He doesn't care if it's $1. And so my husband will frequently take he and the youngest one to Walmart before he takes them to school of a morning, and it might, like I said, just be $1. And their eyes are just huge, and they can't wait to get out of school that afternoon and tell me that they have been to Walmart and got a prize. So he has figured out with them, much quicker than he figured out with me, that they love gifts. That is the middle one's primary love language and the little one's secondary love language. The oldest one is acts of service and quality time, and all he wants you to do is take him to a ball game. So it's really comforting to know that as a grandparent, I can do something with each one of these children that fills their love tanks, because their mom and dad are really, really busy. And so sometimes they're not left out, but sometimes those love tanks don't get filled as full as they need to be for them to feel like all of their needs have been met. So if you have children or grandchildren, please do this with them. You'll be amazed at the difference in response you get from them when you're filling their love tanks.
So in your packet, it says Parents Guide to 5 Love Languages of Children. I changed it to parents. But my 5-year-old's love language is the same as my husband and I. It's physical touch and time. I would say the time is more so. He constantly wants to play, and I can be doing dishes, and he just nags and nags and nags until I go play with him. Anything I'm doing. And I was reading that book recently, The Love Languages for Children, and it said if you will just give them 15 minutes of your time right when you get home, you're going to be able to get so much more done and not have to hear that nagging. And then my 13-year-old daughter, her love language is acts of service and gifts, which is not my husband and I's love language. So we have to make more of an effort. And I was telling Paul on the way here a couple days ago, my daughter, she has to wash her dishes after we've eaten, clean it off or whatever. And so my husband took her plate and said, hey, I'm going to do acts of service. I'll just clean it for you. And she was so excited. And so she went over and hugged him because she knows that that's his love language. But it really does make a difference when we're speaking those love languages. And then the next slide is taken from the love language for teens, and that paper is also in your file folder. And it just gives you ideas of things that you can do and what you should avoid if they have that love language.
I think the biggest thing that I learned from this particular portion right here are the things to avoid, the things that I don't realize that I'm doing that are affecting the particular love language that my children and grandchildren had. It's okay, we're close.
All right, well, I hope that you all enjoyed today. And this was just a quote that I found on love languages. I hope you'll all go home and practice your kids' love language, your spouse's love language, and even go back to your work and practice. Find out what their love languages are. It does make a difference. Thanks again.
Thank you. We're just about 5 minutes early. It's 6 minutes. That was